Sunday everyone, I'm Mrs Scriven, I'm head of school at St Mary's. Today is Saturday and it is gloriously sunny, so I thought I would do our today's collective worship from Laycock Abbey. Now we'll be having a story in a moment from Reverend Anne from St Helens, but before we do that I just want to reflect on something I learnt from Year 1-2 at St Mary's this week. Now in Year 1-2 they've been reading the story about Augustus and the tiger who lost his smile until he realised at the end of the story that his smile was always at the end of his nose and he only had to be joyful to be able to see that smile. And the last page of the story, it says, he only had to swim with the fish or dance in the puddles or climb the mountains and look at the world, for happiness was all around him. And today on this glorious sunny day we're reminded that the world is full of hope and we've got so much to look forward to. Now, Reverend Anne has a story to share and she wanted me to tell you that in this story, Abraham is very early in the Bible, and Abraham at this point is called Abram rather than Abraham, and it's only later that God gave Abraham, or Abram at this point in the story, a slightly longer name to honour him and the work that he had done. So I'm going to hand over to Anne to hear about Abraham and the hope that he felt.
Many years after the time of Noah, there was a man named Abram. Abram was a good man who owned many sheep and cattle. He lived with his wife Sarai in the land of Haran, but he had no children. One day God came to Abram. Whether it was in a vision or in a dream, we don't know for sure, but God did come to Abram and he said to him, Abram, I want you to pack up all your things and leave your home. I want you to go to the land I will give you. I promise that I will bless you and make your family great. I will be with you in all you do, and because of you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Wow, that was quite a promise, but a scary one too. It meant that Abram would have to leave the place he knew and go to a place he didn't know. He would have to trust God that everything would be okay. But that's just what Abram did. Abram took his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot. They packed up everything they owned in the land of Haran and moved to the land of Canaan. That was the land that God was going to lead them to. It couldn't have been a very easy move to make. Abram was 75 years old when God told him to pack up everything he owned and leave his home. And if you look at a map, Canaan is a long way away from Haran. And then, one warm, starry night, many years later, Abram was resting in his tent after a hard day's work. People lived in tents back in those days because they had to move from place to place to find food for their many sheep and cattle. It was a night like any other night, until God appeared. This must have been a bit of a surprise and maybe more than a little bit scary. But God said to Abram, do not be afraid. I am your defender. I promise that I will give you a great reward. But Abram said, what kind of reward? I don't even have any children. And then God took Abram out beneath the starry sky. Look up at the stars in the sky, God said. You will have a son. He will have children, and his children will have children, and they will have more children. And one day they will be as many as the stars in the sky. Abram said, how can this be? I'm old. But God had made a promise to Abram. God promised Abram that he would have children, and from him a great nation would come. God promised that they would live in the land that God had given them, and God promised that because of Abram, all people on earth would be blessed. And God always keeps his promises. Abram believed God's promise, and Abram's faith pleased God. It was Abram's faith in God and his promise that made things right between Abram and God. That is an important thing to remember. Before God even started to make the world, he had a plan. His plan is for us to know how good he is and how much he loves us, and that one day we will come to live with him forever in heaven. This was the beginning of God's plan.
Thank you, Reverend Anne. Now, Reverend Anne has asked me to share these reflection questions for you and for you to think about in your classes today. So how would you feel if you were told to move house to a new faraway place? How do you think Abraham and his family travelled? What would they need for their journey? Have you ever been camping in the wild? What was it like? Now, Abraham trusted God. Abraham was obedient. What did Abraham hope for as a result of God's promise? Some really great questions there. Thank you, Anne. Okay.
Disturb us, Lord, to dare more boldly, to venture on wider seas, where storms will show your mastery, where losing sight of land, we shall find the stars. We ask you to push back the horizon of our hopes and push us into the future in strength, courage and hope and love. Amen.
So whilst we're not able to sing together in class, I've got a great song for you to listen to. And if you wanted to sing it, why don't you check out our YouTube channel when you get home and you can sing along. Bye-bye now, everyone.
When the world is hurting, when life is so confusing, I am sure of one thing, God, you're by my side, yeah. When I'm feeling lonely and I start to worry, I know, God, you're near me and you're always by my side, yeah. And I can lift my hands up to you, I can raise my voice and sing. You are who I put all hope in, I will trust you in everything. There is hope. Trust in the day. I have hope. I have hope in the Lord. He is mighty and good. There is hope in the Lord. When the world is hurting, when life is so confusing, I am sure of one